Narayana and welcome back. Today we are on Narada Instructs the Pracetas. This is it, the final chapter of Canto 4. It has been such a long read and such a winding story. The great sage Maitreya said, "After that, the Pracetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. At last they remembered the blessings of the Lord and left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. The Pracetas went to the seashore in the west, where the great liberated sage Jajali was residing. After perfecting the spiritual knowledge, by which one becomes equal toward all living entities, the Pracetas became perfect in Krishna consciousness. After practicing the yogasana for mystic yoga, the Pracetas managed to control their life air, mind, words, and external vision. Thus, by pranayama processes, they were completely relieved of material attachment. By remaining perpendicular, they could concentrate their minds on the uppermost Brahman. While they were practicing this pranayama, the great sage Narada, who was worshipped both by demons and demigods, came to see them. As soon as the Pracetas saw that the great sage had appeared, they immediately got up from their asanas. As required, they immediately offered obeisances and worshipped him, and when they saw that Narada Muni was properly seated, they began to ask him questions. "O great sage, O Brahmana, we hope you met with no disturbances while coming here. It is due to our great fortune that we are now able to see you. By the traveling of the sun, people are relieved from the fear of the darkness of night, a fear brought about by thieves and rogues. Similarly, your traveling is like the sun's, for you drive away all kinds of fear. O Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Dear Master, kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge, which may act as a torchlight by which we may cross the dark nescience of material existence." Being thus petitioned by the Pracetas, the supreme devotee Narada, who was always absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord, replied as such. When a living entity is born to engage in the devotional service of the Lord, who is the supreme controller, his birth, all his fruitive activities, his lifespan, his mind, and his words are all factually perfect. A civilized human being has 3 kinds of birth. The first birth is by a pure mother and father, and this birth is called birth by semen. The next birth takes place when one is initiated by a spiritual master, and this birth is called Savitri. The third birth, called Yajnika, takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities, the process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, increased strength, and the power of the senses? Transcendental practices that do not ultimately help one realize the Lord are useless, be they mystic yoga practices, the analytical study of matter, or severe austerities, the acceptance of a sannyasa, or the study of the Vedas. All these may be very important aspects of spiritual advancement, but unless one understands the Lord Hari, all these processes are useless. Factually, the Lord is the original source of all self-realization. Consequently, the goal of all auspicious activity, be it karma, jhana, yoga, and bhakti, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as the supplying of food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Lord through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods, who are parts of the Lord. During the rainy season, water is generated from the sun, and in due course of time, during the summer, the very same water is again absorbed by the sun. Similarly, all living entities, moving and inert, are generated from the earth, and again, after some time, they all return to the earth as dust. Similarly, everything emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in due course of time, everything enters into him again. Just as the sunshine is non-different from the sun, the cosmic manifestation is also non-different from the Lord. The Supreme Personality is therefore all-pervasive within this material creation. When the senses are active, they appear to be part and parcel of the body, but when the body is asleep, their activities are unmanifest. Similarly, the whole cosmic creation appears different and yet non-different from the Supreme Person. My dear kings, sometimes in the sky there are clouds, sometimes there is darkness, and sometimes there is illusion. The appearance of all these takes place consecutively. Similarly, in the Supreme Absolute, the modes of passion, darkness, and goodness appear as consecutive energies. Sometimes they appear, and sometimes they disappear. Because the Lord is the cause of all causes, he is the supersoul of all individual living entities, and he exists as both the remote and immediate cause. Since he is aloof from the material emanations, he is free from their interactions, and is Lord of all material nature. You should therefore engage in his devotional service, thinking yourself qualitatively one with him. By showing mercy to all living entities being satisfied somehow or other, and restricting the senses from sense enjoyment, one can very quickly satisfy the Lord. Being completely cleansed of all material desires, the devotees are free from all mental contamination. Thus they can always think of the Lord constantly and address him very feelingly. The Lord, knowing himself to be controlled by his devotees, does not leave them for a second, just as the sky overhead never becomes invisible. The Lord becomes very dear to those devotees who have no material possessions, but are fully happy in possessing devotional service of the Lord. Indeed, the Lord relishes the devotional activities of such devotees. Those who are puffed up with material education, wealth, and aristocracy and fruitive activity are very proud of possessing material things, and they often deride the devotees. Even if such people offer the Lord worship, the Lord never accepts them. Although the Lord is self-sufficient, he becomes dependent on his devotees. He does not care for the goodness of fortune, nor for the kings and demigods who are after the favors of the goddess of fortune. Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship Lord Vishnu? The great sage Maitreya continued. Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Pracetas. Afterwards, he returned to Brahmaloka. Hearing from Narada Muni's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquish all the ill fortune of the world, the Pracetas also became attached to the Lord. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. My dear Vidura, I have told you everything you wanted to know about the conversation between Narada and the Pracetas, the conversation describing the glories of the Lord. I have related this as far as possible. Sukadeva Goswami continued his narration. O best of kings, King Parikshit, I have now finished telling about the descendants of the first son of Svayambhavu, Manu, Uttanapada. I shall now try to relate the activities of the descendants of Priyavrata, the second son of Svayambhavu, Manu. Please hear them attentively. Although Maharaji Priyavrata received instructions from the great sage Narada, he still engaged in ruling the earth. After fully enjoying material possessions, he divided his property among his sons. He then attained a position by which he could return home, back to Godhead. My dear king, in this way, after hearing the transcendental messages of the Lord and his devotees from the great sage Maitreya, Vidura was overwhelmed with ecstasy. With tears in his eyes, he immediately fell down at the lotus feet of his guru, his spiritual master. He then fixed the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of his heart. He then said, O great mystic, O greatest of all devotees, by your causeless mercy I have been shown the path of liberation from this world of darkness. By following this path, a person liberated from the material world can return home. Vidura thus offered obeisances unto the great sage Maitreya, and, taking his permission, started for the city of Hastinapura to see his own kinsmen, although he had no material desires. O king, those who hear these topics about kings who are completely surrendered to the Lord obtain, without difficulty, a long life, wealth, good reputation, good fortune, and ultimately the opportunity to return home, back to Godhead. Thus ends Canto 4 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I called previously the down-to-earth canto. It was the one that brought home everything on a very personal level. Things we have heard before in the first 3 cantos all became instilled in an array of characters, quite a few stories. So I called it, I believe, the Canto of Passion, because it's full of passion. Passion by mortal men and women for the Lord, and passion for this and passion for whatever. I still say that. I think I said that actually very early on, but I still say that I think that's very much what this book is. It's the book of passion. It brings everything together that we've learned, repeats a lot, but kind of solidifies it together one more time before what I think is just going to be a really new direction. I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that Canto 5, maybe Canto 6, get into astrology because I've studied things in this chapter elsewhere, and I've actually read a book about Canto 5. I hope you have enjoyed this tour through the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't really know what to say other than I've said so much through all these videos. So I opened the conversation to you on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So yeah, this has been a very fascinating journey, and so glad that I started reading this book. I really am glad that I'm really glad that I finally sat down and just started reading it from front to back. I feel like a profound change. I feel like I've really developed my spirituality and just gotten a bigger view of things. Doesn't always answer the theological questions, doesn't always make things easier, but such is life. So until next time, you know how it goes down below. If anything, like, subscribe, comment, email, all that good stuff. And take care and be well. And thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.